Hello again, and welcome to Perfectly Paranormal, episode 85. My name's Annaschmidt, and I'm here every week to share with you true paranormal encounters and information about devils, demons, and dark energy beings that no one else talks about. And today, following on from last week's question from Amy about demons and do they have souls, we have a whole episode on demon Q&A. I have a pile of your demonic questions that have been building up for a while now. Some of them are sensible and some of them are not so sensible, and I'm going to answer them all anyway. So sit back and listen for the paranormal lowdown on demons. Our 5 questions for today are: is it possible to be possessed by a good ghost or a demon that can actually help you with stuff? And how do you make a deal with a demon without selling your soul? And how do you become a demon? I've never been asked that one before. And also, what do demons actually do all day? Do they have a job? And the last question we're going to answer: is there a power hierarchy amongst demons? And that's a rather long answer for that one, but all very relevant. So let's start our episode today with: is it possible to be possessed by a good ghost or a demon that can actually help you with stuff? Well, my answer to this is basically depends on what you mean by stuff. This question has so many possibilities, and I'm going to give it, I want to give it an outright no. But then I thought, let's look at some of the options and then make a more informed decision. And as you know, I like lists. So I've come up with a few options today, and let's have a look. Number 1. Now, I know spirit mediums who allow full body possession by spirits, but this is for the short term. Maybe 5-10 minutes, maybe half an hour. And why they do this is so that the spirit can actually talk through them to their loved ones, to pass on messages, to share information. But it's simply a short-term process. And then the spirit leaves of their own free will afterwards. Number 2, if a spirit wanted to get back into a body long-term, I would question their motives. People don't realise how draining and exhausting it is to be around spirit energy all day. Believe me, it's not fun by any means. So you could imagine what it would be like to have a spirit present within your energy field, using your energy when you're trying to function on your own energy every day. Number 3, and another thing that ties into number 2, what makes you think that it's a spirit? People say yes, and they invite all sorts of entities into their personal spaces all the time. Well, I shouldn't say all the time, but I've spoken to people who have done this of their own free will, and then they start having all sorts of problems happen. Because dark entities are very cunning. We know that. And they can sometimes disguise themselves to get close to us. Now, a juicy new host, which sounds rather gross, but it's quite true, is what some dark entities are looking for. Now, this is especially with people who have a lot of trauma, they've got a lot of vulnerability, they've got a lot of emotional baggage. People like that are prime targets for the dark entities to get close to feed off the person's energy, because as we know, that is simply what they do. We are emotional, energetic batteries for these entities. Now, number 4, I get messages or ideas from spirit guides in the form of words or short movies in my mind, in my third eye. But these beings don't technically get into my body. They don't possess you. They are telepathically connecting to your mind, to your brow chakra, your crown chakra, to your brain. They're just passing on information. Spirits, as in deceased loved ones, they will contact you through dreams, through music, through family celebrations, just through talking to you, through looking at their photo. You might hear their voice, you might hear words, you might hear phrases, you might smell their favourite scent or grandma's jam scones that she used to make. Spirits don't need to get into your body to get close to you to share information. And I'm not quite sure what this person means by help you with stuff. Now, number 5, spirits and dark beings can shadow you, especially if you invite them to stay. Now, it doesn't technically mean body possession, more so space possession. They can be in your home, your bed, your kitchen, your favourite spot on the couch, the shower, the car, you name it. They will follow you everywhere and they will drive you nuts and they will drain your energy. It's just what they do. They can't help it. So number 6, dark and demonic entities won't help you with stuff the way that you expect or want. And I ask, what would you want a demon to do for you anyway? I mean, unless you've got dark purposes in mind for someone else. They're talking about Satanism and occultism here. Why would you be calling on a demon? I mean, they have their own agendas. They just do. And that solely revolves around triggering your shadow self to create the emotional food that they want. They look after themselves first. Now, if you want to hear a 7-year experience from a young man from the age of 12 to 19 years old, he attempted to make a pact with the devil multiple times just to help him. He wasn't in a great mind state when he did this. And it turned into a long-running nightmare. Now, if you want to hear Hilly's full story, you can tune into episode 33. Number 7. So how do you make a deal with a demon without selling your soul? 2 words. You can't. It's absolutely not possible. There's always an exchange between 2 parties. Every deal, every contract, every agreement, pact or arrangement has to have an exchange of energy. We humans, we exchange money or goods or services. Energy beings want an energetic exchange. They can't use anything else. And the lower vibrational beings, as we know, they feed off our emotional energy, our trauma energy, our addictions and so forth. I mean, that's what they do every single day. So if you're wanting something more from a demon, the next level up is your soul energy. And I have to say, why would you want to mess with the dark realm anyway? People get into these things without actually realising what they're doing. There has to be a human way to get what you need. There really, really does. You've just got to do the detective work, ask the questions, do the homework. Too many times I have seen the detrimental outcomes for people who dabble in darkness, totally oblivious of what awaits them. They read books, they watch movies, they see what they think is going to give them whether it be fame or acknowledgement or more money, or they want to look a certain way, totally oblivious of what awaits them. All they can see is what their ego wants and not the reality of their request. Deals with the devil are not a quick fix. Now, the next question is a little bit of an odd one. Well, I think anyway. How do you become a demon? Well, from my opinion, the short answer is you just don't. It's not possible. Demonic entities are not the same as human energy. You'll hear me talk about demons have souls. We all come from one place and we all have soul energy. But to me, you can't become a demon because the demonic agreement with management that was made at the beginning of time, these beings have a different purpose to what we have as human beings on this earth. And why would you want to become a demon anyway? I don't think it would be a fun thing to do. I actually think that the person who asked this question is a fantasy writer or a game player looking for ideas for some sort of D&D type game. On another level though, There are people on Earth who live in such a low vibration that I suppose they could be classed as demonic by their behaviours, by their actions. These people, they show no remorse, no empathy for their actions that really do shock mass population. Now, I'm not going to give examples. We can all think of things that we've seen on the news, we've seen online and go, how could a person do that? And also, there are those who think that becoming part of the demonic realm gives them power. That's the draw card. That attracts their ego. Maybe in the short term, people would feel that there'd be, if you could become a demon, that there would be some sort of gain that you would get, or you would have some sort of superpowers. But I don't think they realise how hard some of these demonic beings have to work, which is I'm going to talk about in the demonic power hierarchy, which is the last question. So stay tuned for that one. But people are really pawns for the darker desires of lower vibrational entities. So don't get caught in making pacts or agreements or contracts just because you want something in your life. There has to be a human way to get it. So our next question, what do demons actually do all day? Do they have a job? This question I partially covered back in episode 79, where I shared my opinions and my observations about dark entities as teachers. So, yeah, you could say that they actually do have jobs. And also, too, I'm going to talk about that in the next question when we talk about the power hierarchy. So if you're interested in demonic beings as teachers, you can check out that episode. It was a rather eye-opening lesson for me and a few other people. So also too, there are different ranks of demonic entities. They're not all just demons. So they do have different jobs, which we are going to look at now. So let's dive into, is there a power hierarchy amongst demons? And this question gets a yes indeed. There is a hierarchy in the dark realm. Entities do have jobs. There are workers, there are managers, and there are bosses. It's the same as the Earth reality, really. I can share with you what I've witnessed and what I've learnt about this hierarchy that I've been shown over the years. I mean, I don't know it all, and it's just my opinion. There'll be others out there that have different opinions about how this works, and that is absolutely okay. If I was to describe to you the power hierarchy amongst demons, I would have to say that the dark realm functions like an army. They've got different levels of power and authority, from your privates right through to your generals. Now, the privates, I would have to say that there are, what I've found so far, around 6 categories in this section. And they're what I sometimes call the mischievous entities that affect us in different ways, such as these beings can hide in your energy field, and they can influence you by using strategies such as affecting your balance, your motor skills, your oral functioning, and interfering with your facial expressions. Now, I know those things sound odd, but I have balance difficulties and motor skill difficulties, and I've noticed in the past that when I go to some locations, these entities affect my balance, they affect the way that my mouth works. It's really, really funny. I can go from speaking very clearly to sounding like someone who has quite a defined speech impediment. Now, we all have slight speech difficulties. It's just part of our nature. But this is really quite severe. I notice the changes. And the facial expressions, that's a really funny one. I find myself pulling really funny faces sometimes when I go to places. And people are looking at me, and then I realise I'm doing it. So now I know when I get some of these physical symptoms happening that I have some of the mischievous entities around me. These beings may also manipulate your thought processes, creating brain fog or influencing your dreams, affecting your sleep patterns. I created a book called The Darkness Around Us a few years ago. And if anyone's interested, in chapter 2, I created a whole chapter on signs and symptoms. Because I've experienced a lot over the years, and I've had other people contribute some of their signs and symptoms. And many of these are relevant to how the mischievous entities affect us, and also some of the demonic level entities. When these beings are present in homes, mischievous entities love to create diversions. Oh, they know. They know what's going to trigger us because they see us watching paranormal movies. Doors slamming, lights flickering, scratching on walls, knocking, items sort of moving around, falling off benches, whispering, wafting breezes. They know how to trigger us, and they will use every strategy to get your attention. Now, these beings, like I said, they like to knock on walls. Sometimes they mess with the plumbing. Oh, they love flickering lights, shorting out light bulbs, and playing with technical devices. How often has your phone shut down just for no reason? And what made me think of that? I was talking to a client the other day, and she had a terrible phone connection. I don't know where she was or what she was doing, but the phone connection was terrible. Every time her partner walked past her, the phone would cut out. Now, we were having a conversation about me doing a house clearing, and these entities, they listen to our conversations. They're like Big Brother. They're real eavesdroppers. They love to know what we're talking about, especially me, because I'm always talking about them. Not in a bad way, just in a professional house clearing way. And when this lady rang me back, she said, "Oh, my partner's just walked past me twice and the phone cut out." Now, there's reasons why that occurred. That man has entities attached to him, but they know we're talking and they know I'm going to be doing the work on their home soon. So they were trying to block our communications. I will say that these beings do delight in misplacing objects, and they can flutter and move curtains. They can scratch on surfaces, and they can also pull on your bed covers. These activities, from what I've seen and read, have always been attributed to poltergeists. Now, I don't use that word. That word, when you look at the German translation, means noisy ghost. And I just find that really inaccurate and quite disrespectful. From my experience, spirits don't throw items. They don't explode light bulbs. They don't lift beds, they don't spin beds, they don't do all those things that you see poltergeists doing in the movies. That being said, I haven't experienced the mischievous dark entities throwing furniture or hurling objects at people. But that doesn't mean it's not possible. And sometimes spirits they'll move items that are close to the edge of benches or tables, and they'll knock them on the floor. They're just trying to get your attention. They're like, "Hello, I'm here." Now, something else I've seen with these mischievous level entities is their ability to shapeshift. Now, these mischievous entities sometimes will take on the form of children, and these children pretend that they're looking for refuge. And they'll tug on your heartstrings and they will weaken your emotions and you will just fall for it. "Oh, she's so sweet and so lonely looking. You can come and stay at my house." Never invite any energy beings into your home. Never, 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 never. Because you do not know what they're up to. You do not know what they want. These are tricksters. They really are tricksters. And I did a whole discussion about this back in episode 2 when I had a local experience here in Hobart. So I won't talk about that now because otherwise I'll get very, very sidetracked. But check out episode 2 if you want to hear about the shapeshifters. Now, once you get past the mischievous entities, you're moving into what I call the streakers. And before you have a giggle or roll your eyes, we're not talking about the streakers that we see running across sports ovals buck naked. These beings are generally seen at night. Now, I know this because I've experienced it very, very long time in the early days, and I did not know what it was until I worked it out. The streakers, they will show up when you are in a dark room and you've got your eyes closed and you're maybe relaxing or you're drifting off to sleep. you will see flashes of streaking light moving across the inside of your eyelids. And you can do the debunking. It's not generally external light sources such as street lights or passing car lights. These entities, they enter through tears in your energy field and they just quietly sort of hide away in your physical body or your energy body, which is your chakras, meridian lines and your energy field. Beings generally don't create physical symptoms, but they can affect your dream state. Your dreams and your sleep patterns can often be disturbed by these flecks of white light or moving lights. These streakers give away their presence by their actions. Quite often they will cloak themselves and they hide in the background, whether it's in your brain or your chakras or your meridian lines. They love the head for some reason, probably because that's where we store all our thoughts, and they get in there and they read what we're getting up to. Real sticky beaks. But they're generally drawn to the detrimental emotional content in the energy body. This is the chakras or the meridian lines. So sometimes these beings can get into your governing meridian line or the brow chakra, which sits sort of just above, in between your two eyebrows, just in the centre of your forehead almost, or your crown chakra, which sits on the top of your head. Now, I knew these beings were present when I would quite often shut my eyes, getting ready to go to sleep, and I would see this flash of white light run from usually the right to the left. And I found it fascinating because I'm a paranormal addict and I just observed them for a long time. But then I started to notice that when they were present, that my dreams would change. They'd be a little bit more negative. They'd be a bit more like I was being triggered to create certain responses. When I unpacked where they were and what they were up to and moved them on, I didn't see the streaks of light anymore. Now we're getting into the shockers. This group of energy beings can be quite spiteful. They love to use what I call shock therapy to initiate emotional responses. Now, they know that I'm reactive towards this. Even after 30 years, I occasionally will still react when I get these sudden electric shocks. I'm trying to train myself not to respond, but we do. We're all human. Now, these beings can be present in homes or other buildings or in the environment. I haven't found yet that they actually enter the human energy field. They simply live in locations. If disturbed at their location, they retaliate by zapping you with very short, sharp bursts of electricity, creating sudden emotional reactions such as shock or fear or anxiety, paranoia, horror. I'm sure they do it half the time just for a giggle. They're either retaliating or they've got a sense of humour, because as we all know, dark beings have a sense of humour and they love us humans running amok because we're frightened. Most of us are frightened, not me. I've even been zapped on my eyelids. Now that got a reaction out of me. I was not very impressed about that, and I did respond with rather loud swear words. Now shockers, quite often they'll give us the zap and then off they go again. I find I only get one shock. I feel like it's more sometimes being a house healer, it's sometimes a warning. Like, don't come into this room, don't come into this house, we don't want you here. And what I do with the shockers, and really all lower vibrational beings, is I just talk to them. I explain to them that they won't be harmed and they simply need to move house. Now, the auditory infiltrators. Have you ever heard internal voices and wondered if your mind was playing tricks on you or that you might be going a little bit crazy? Most of the time, we're not. We are energy beings in an energetic environment, intermingled with all sorts of other energy beings. Some of them will talk to us. They use telepathy to project their messages, and it can be delivered as a whisper or it can be a shout. The messages quite often are repeated, usually with harmful content, and manipulation is their prime objective. So when you're aware of this, you go, hang on, that's not me. That is not something that I would do to get the result I need. You question it, and then you tell these entities to move on very quickly. You do it respectfully, in a firm voice, and generally they'll go because they know that you're not going to give them what they want. Now, I've talked about this in detail a few times on this podcast, back in episode 46 and also in episode 74. Now, this next group of entities, there's a little bit of debate about these guys. Black-eyed children. These dark energy beings choose disguises as their mode of frightening us. And I have found through my few experiences with them that they have quite a sadistic nature, and they feed off fear, paranoia, terror, horror, anxiety. The movie industry has really long instilled fear into us with the images of possessed children with blackened eyes. Children are the core of our society. So these dark beings know that children are the perfect way to get into our thoughts, our minds, our hearts, and we just simply let down our guard. The energy beings that use this facade are addicted to our fear and our paranoia and our anxiety, and they readily feed off those emotions. They're pretty much the same as every other type of low vibrational being. They're all feeding off our energy in some way, but they just use different means, different times of the day, different ways to poke and prod us to react. This type of dark energy, these black-eyed children, are mainly seen at night, and they can quite often be seen in darkened rooms or in dark wardrobes or standing in the corners or behind doors. These positions are prize trigger locations, as I call them, because they know that we've been trained to fear the darkness. We've been trained to fear the dark from childhood. These beings really love to mess with your mind. They don't technically enter the physical body. They're more external triggerers, and they use these environmental tactics to just get us to create the fear that they want. Now, the next group of entities are slightly creepy on another scale. We're talking the sexual entities that sometimes people call incubus and succubus energies, and they're well documented through history. You see them in the literature, you see them in the paintings as terrorising people as they sleep. This is a rather sensitive topic, as you can imagine, but you've got to mention them here. I've experienced these beings. I've experienced these beings myself, but I know what they're up to. Anything that climbs onto your bed in the middle of the night, like I'm a very light sleeper, I know when my bed covers move, and it's not me doing the moving. Anything that gets on your bed and gets very close to you and might try a little bit of hanky-panky, I'm like, nah, you need to leave right now. Get out. You're not welcome. Go away. Please leave my home. Firm, but with respect. Generally, they'll go because they know that I know that they're there. But they can be present with other people for other reasons, such as people who have intense negative emotions from detrimental sexual experiences, such as sexual abuse or being traumatized by viewing explicit pornography, or from being physically exposed to disturbing sexual practices. These experiences create trauma and emotions such as shame, guilt, remorse, disgust, fear, or helplessness. Now, I covered all of this back in episode 11, covered everything that I know, everything that I've observed and I've experienced with these entities right up until 2021. So if you want to hear the full story, check out that episode. Now, in saying that, those types of sexual entities are what I call the freelancers. They're part of the demonic hierarchy, but there are also magic beings, or what I call summoned entities. Now, this is something that I've experienced since 2022 onwards. These magic sexual entities, they've kind of got different jobs. I'll put it this way. The freelancing beings are drawn to people with sexual trauma, whereas the summoned entities, They're sent to harass you in sexual ways by other human beings using magic and sorcery for whatever reason, and who knows why people do some of the things that they do. Now we're going to enter the heavier end of the darker scale. We're going to move into the really top-level demonic entities. These are what I call the high-ranking controllers. These beings feed on extreme build-ups of trauma and very low vibrational emotions, including emotions such as hatred, anxiety, resentment, fear, worthless, unworthy, rage, hostility, and paranoia. I find that those emotions are top of the list when it comes to demonic level attraction. Now, at this end of the scale, I've got 4 different types of beings that I can describe to you. The fear feeders are the first one. Now, the fear feeders focus on penetrating your mind to find your emotional and mental triggers connected to your worst fears. Now, they will generate images in your mind, whether day or night. They don't care. They want you to create fear, which is their primary food source. Now, the best way to combat these entities is to realise when your everyday thoughts and emotions, sometimes your dreams, they'll slip into your dreams if you're more, if you're more protected during the day, if you're more aware during the day. Some of these beings know that when we are in our sleep state, we're less aware of what's going on around us, and that they will change our dreams to be quite negative and traumatic. So the best way to respond to this is that I'm aware when they do it now. I still get it occasionally if these beings are in people's homes and I've been employed to do a house clearing job and that job's coming up very soon. And all I do is that I'll wake up and I'll just go, it's not real, you can't hurt me, I'm not interested, please leave. I'm not affected by what you're doing, please leave. Remember, firm but with respect. And then I just go back to sleep. You don't let them trigger you. Once they know that you know what they're up to, they'll just go. They'll just move on to the next person. Now we have Legion soldiers. These beings, I've had some experience with these guys. Now these beings, oh my goodness, these beings can infiltrate your home en masse. They can be deployed in droves. When humans overstep their boundaries through provocation or invocation or being disrespectful, energy workers have no idea what they're getting into when they sign up to do all sorts of different levels of energy work. They have no idea of the types of energy beings that are around us. These entities are sent as a warning by the higher ranking demonic beings, and they want you to back off. There are specific places in the world where I would never, ever consider doing house clearing work. I see them a lot because I like watching paranormal investigation shows sometimes. And there are places that people consistently visit. There's a lot of them in the US, and I'm not going to mention them because these entities, remember, they listen to our communications. I've had experiences where a man was bragging through email about visiting a particularly possessed property in the US. And after that email, I had some really, really horrible things happening in my home. My dreams were really bad. My physical symptoms, my walking, my motor skills were bad. I was tripping up all the time. I was dropping things. The lights would flicker. I just can't remember all the symptoms. There was so much. Like they absolutely invaded my home. Now, this didn't just happen to me. This particular man in the US, he also emailed a former workmate of mine in the UK. And when I spoke to him, he had similar goings on in his home. He's like, I don't know what's going on. There's this, and this happening. And I'm going, yeah, I've got the same stuff happening here. And then I realised what had happened. This man who was bragging about his attempt at clearing a well-known paranormal site in America, he was bragging he was just really off the show when it came to letting me know how good he was. Well, I wasn't impressed. And more so, the paranormal grapevine, where these beings listen through, they weren't impressed either. So what I did, you're going to love the way I solved this problem. I have no ego when it comes to working with the paranormal, because there are millions and billions of them and we can't see them. We don't know where they are most of the time and what they're up to. You have to be respectful. Always respectful, not just because they can cause you problems. It's just generally a nice thing to do. You respect every level of energy being. What I did, sat at my kitchen table where I do my work, and I just sat there, I calmed my mind and I focused. And I said the name of the person who had sent me the email and the name of the property, because he'd also sent me the address, which is bad. I can't look at addresses. Triggers me to, well, it triggers them to know that I can see into the property, energetically, of course. So I sat there, said the man's name, said the property name, gave them a very humble apology. And I said this humble apology 3 times, and that's not for any particular reason. I have an issue with OCD, and I wanted to make sure that they got the message that I was very, very sorry. So I would have words with this man. I sent him a very direct email. I won't repeat what I said. I didn't swear and I wasn't disrespectful, but I was very straightforward and very firm in my message. Hopefully he got the message to not mess with these beings, to not mess with these locations. You just don't go to some places in the world and think that your ego can do an energy clearing. Okay, so that's the Legion soldiers, and we're heading into our last 2 interesting groups of energy beings. Now, this next group I've called the sub-commanders, because remember, we're going up in rankings. And this being actually came to me one night. I've only had one experience with one sub-commander, but it was enough for me to remember it forever. Now, when you think about it, someone has to order around the Legion soldiers. You know, this is the job of the sub-commanders. These energies don't usually show themselves to humans, or not that anyone else has ever said to me that they've seen an energy being like this. They are simply there to oversee what the soldiers are doing and how they're doing it and where they need to go and what sort of retaliation they need to activate. Now, one night I was going to bed, and I talked about this back in episode 43, and this was a really interesting experience. I was going to bed, usual routine. I was in the house by myself, and I'm getting into bed all nice and relaxed and cozy, and inside my mind, I saw these red eyes. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Now, I hadn't been watching any paranormal movies, read any books. I didn't watch any paranormal investigations, so I knew my mind was clear. So these red eyes, I just observed them. I opened my eyes, I could still see them. I closed my eyes, I could still see them. That told me they were in my mind. Anyway, this being wanted to defect to the other side, which I found totally fascinating. If I describe to you what he looked like, and I call them all he. I don't think they have gender. I don't ask because it's not very polite. I just call them all he because that's just the nature of me. This sub-commander, he was around 7 feet tall and he had very lumpy black skin. He released these gloopy black droplets of dark energy where he stood, and he had these very piercing blood red eyes. It was interesting because his eyes were tiny compared to the size of his body. But anyway, we're not going to go on about that now. If you want to hear the full episode, back in episode 43, I tell you the whole story. Now these guys, these happen to be my favourite level, if I can say that, respect intended, my favourite level of the demonic level beings. Now we're talking about the Legion Generals. Now, I've had many rather fascinating experiences with this level of demonic being. Now, the generals are pretty much at the top of the pecking order before you get to the big guy, before you get to Satan. The Legion Generals, these are commanding and pretty much keeping order in the lower realms. Occasionally, high-ranking Legion generals will challenge house healers, energy clearers, or healers in general, people that they see as being a threat or who have been disrespectful, overstepping their boundaries. My first experience with a Legion general, I'd actually overstepped a boundary, but I didn't realise, and I did make that very humble apology. But this being, oh my goodness, this being came through the wall in my kitchen. I did talk about it in another episode. I think it may be episode 3. It's called The Part-Time Demon Hunter, where I visited a lady's house who lives in the same suburb as me. And she had some really wacky paranormal ideas. She was very disrespectful and they really didn't like her. And me, I wanted to help this lady. And I was still learning back in the early days. Anyway, we'll get on to the Legion General part of the story. Sitting at my kitchen table one day, I was trying to think about, now how can I help this lady? I'd been to her house many times. Nothing I did would help. And there was a reason why. She wanted change, didn't want change. She was disrespectful with her language, with her actions. It just didn't go down well in the dark realms. Well, sitting there at my table, focusing on my laptop, and in my sort of upper peripheral vision, I see my kitchen wall above my table. It was almost like there was a time rip, almost like a portal opened. Through this portal, there was this energy being that partially appeared. And what I saw was this very long black horn and red skin and a cloven hoof. I looked up and I went, stop right there. I was very respectful. I said, I know why you're here. I know. I am sorry. I'm really, really sorry I got involved with this lady's case. I thought I was helping her. Obviously, you need to deal with her because of her disrespectful ways. And I made a very big, long-winded apology. And the hoof retreated, and so did the horn, and the rip in my wall disappeared. I'll never forget it. It was like, wow, like my paranormal addict hit the top level that day. I'm getting all excited just thinking about it. It was just fascinating. This entity was very interesting. Now, I've dealt with the Legion Generals a few times now. Treat them with respect. They treat you with respect because we all have jobs. They know that I go about my house clearing work very respectfully. I treat their beings well. Put it this way. I treat them appropriately for their behaviours. The archangels have had to step in maybe 3 or 4 times with some beings that were being totally disrespectful and trying to harm me in ways that I won't even mention. And they have been dealt with. Now, lastly, we've reached the big guy himself, sitting on top of the demonic hierarchy. So we're looking at Satan, or the Dark Leader, or Lucifer, or Beelzebub, or whatever you want to call this energy being. We all have different perceptions regarding the appearance or the behaviours of Satan based on religious references, social references, historical references. We all have our own perceptions. Now, I don't interact with Satan. Never have. I don't need to. I think if he wants to have words with me, he would send his Legion generals to telepathically tell me what I'm doing wrong or I've overstepped some boundary. But generally, Satan is not present in people's homes. He's kind of like the total overseer of the dark realm. He is the top dog. Now, I trust you've enjoyed the questions and my answers outlined for you today. If you have a paranormal question or you have a comment or you just want to share an experience, feel free to email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com and I will leave the email address in the description box. So in episode 86, we are speaking with Wynne Thornley, an esoteric guide from Alberta, Canada, who shares how she normalises the paranormal world around us by offering alternative learning pathways through her haunted field trips and expanding your psychic abilities in ways that you never thought possible. Wynne shares some paranormal encounters that she has had since childhood, including the spirit who said, "I'm sorry," and the elusive Hat Man. So stay tuned for next week's fascinating and informative episode when we explore the darker side of light work. If you like the content of this episode today, please think about leaving me a rating and a review. What reviews do is they let other people know your thoughts about my supernatural subject matter. People love reading reviews, and we're spreading the word about the real paranormal world around us. I would really appreciate it. Now let's get back to the episode. So thank you for joining me today, and don't forget, if you want to share a paranormal experience just with myself, or you would like me to share one of your experiences through my podcast, you can do a voice recording, or you can write out your experience and I will read it exactly as you have written. You can email me at spiritualbeing44@gmail.com. And for information on paranormal house clearing, you can visit my website, Spiritual Being. You will find the address in the description box. And I look forward to sharing this spooky space again with you next week. And remember, life is perfectly paranormal.